Now it's time to put my cam rollers back in. I gotta clean this hub because it's been out here in a lot of wind yesterday when I started on this. I'll wipe a little grease on that. Somebody left a comment saying putting grease on the seal will cause it to leak. I think he's the only one I've ever heard that from. Some people just have to say something. I have learned a few things from people's comments, but I don't always agree with everything. I'm not going to check the seal in here because I'd have to damage the seal. I mean the bearing, because I'd have to damage the seal to check it. We're just going to go on ahead and put it on there. I'm going to wet this bearing race with the oil in this bucket that was draining out of that hub. I am going to have to rinse this bearing off. It was just awful windy yesterday. I'm going to pack this bearing with some bearing grease. Just all-purpose general bearing grease, and this is a good chance to show how I like to do that. Put as many fingers as I can inside the hole, and the big side of the bearing is facing out. That's the side that I'm going to be scooping grease with. And so I'm just going to get a handful of it, and I'm going to just push it through this side until it comes out over here. Where am I? I'm sorry. I'm going to push it through this side, the grease, pushing it like that until it squirts out this side of the bearing. And like it's doing right there. Get a close-up. Can we see that little grease squirting through there? I'm going to do that all the way around. And just keep rotating the bearing as I go. On cars it's a lot easier because you can just stick one finger in there and all that grease just goes through the bearing instead of coming right through out here. I rinsed it off in diesel fuel. I got a parts cleaning tank, but I don't have parts cleaning fluid in it. I got off-road diesel in it. They're going to have to wait until I get done. I can't answer that. Anyway, got that bearing greased up good. I'm not going to put it in just yet because I got to fill that hub with grease. I mean with oil. I'm going to fill this squeeze bottle with 80-90 gear oil. Put the first nut on with the little knob here facing out. That is tight. I got that snug down tight, and here's what I like to do with this. I don't have a socket this size. It's a 2 5/8. I need to find some sockets that go bigger than what I got, but I don't have any. So I'm going to take this pliers and tighten it. While this is loose, the hub spins real free. But I'm going to tighten this down like that. Now the hub doesn't spin so free. Alright, I'm going to take a hammer and it's still tight. It's not loosening up any. So that tells me that I am well seated. Now if you're changing bearings in races, especially races, and you always change a race when you change a bearing, you really do need to preload that to, they say 50 pounds. Well, preload it regardless, whether it's 50 pounds, whether it's 30 pounds, whether it's 80 pounds. Preload that bearing, loosen it back up. Loosen it back up, touch it until it seats, and then give it about a quarter turn. That quarter turn, no more than a quarter. This, I feel a little bit of play there with that quarter turn. I'm going to go in just a hair. Let me see, I may not go a quarter turn. Let's see. That's where it's seated. I'm going to go about 1/6 of a turn. I can just barely feel ever so slightly. Just a little play there, almost nothing. Well, that leaves my little knob way down here on the bottom. I'm going to put this thing on. Either it's going to go on this way or this way. Here's the flat up here. Well, these holes are not perfectly centered across the top of that flat. So if one hole misses the knob where I want it to go, like it is right now, the knob's landing right in between these two. You can flip it over. Now you'll catch that knob just right. That's good. This one here is a lock washer. I laid that down on the drum and hammered these all flat. Got them nice and flat all the way around. So this knob here goes in now. It's going to catch on one of these in there like that. And I'm wiping another nut off. It goes on the outside, and I do have a socket to fit this, and that's more important because this one, you want it tight. This is the socket that fits it. I got this long breaker bar, and if you remember in the beginning part of the video, I pushed down on this, tightened it to see, since I don't have specs for it. Pushed it down and tightened it just to get an idea of how much pressure it takes to make it move. And I was guessing around 40 pounds of pressure pushing out here on the end of the bar. So we'll make sure we have at least that much on there, and go ahead and fold these out in a couple of places. I'm not going to fold this side here because that's where that little detent is. So I'm going to grab it somewhere else, fold it over. There. Now I got to clean all this off and get some glue on that. Nothing like extremely flammable brake cleaner. Don't get the non-flammable. Oh, it has its uses, but I don't like it because it doesn't dry near as fast. Nothing like brake cleaner for drying oil. Now I gotta do the same thing to this. Put some silicone glue on there if I can get any out of this. It ain't worth trying to get it out of there. I'll just have to cut a new hole in the side of it. I wish they'd make a tube of silicone that would not seal up on the ends where I can't get it out of there. I almost never get through a tube of silicone unless I use it all at once without poking a hole in the side and getting it out that way. Because these are sheet, or this little cap here is sheet metal, thin sheet metal, I'm not going to use a air wrench to tighten them down. I did that taking it off. I'm just going to tighten them down with by hand with a ratchet. A lot of airplanes today. It's all, I guess, the rich people playing with their toys on a Sunday morning. Shut the video off a bunch of times because of airplanes passing over. You know, if I was rich, I'd probably be playing with my airplane too. Looks like I gotta back this cam off a little bit. I didn't think it was gonna be that tight. drum's having trouble going on there. We got to rotate this cam back to the left a little bit. So the adjusting screw is going to be down here on the bottom. 3/8 boxed in. Used to fit good. It's a little loose now. They might have made a smaller hole on that. I have to go get a different wrench. Yeah, I believe they changed the size of it. 5/16 open end used to fit fairly snug. Now it fits real loose on it. So I've got to lift this button out. See, when you go to tighten it, that button ratchets. Well, we got to loosen it, so I have to lift the button out or it won't turn. And then you'll watch this thing rotate back the other way. Yeah, look how loose that is. Now, I can't adjust that brake properly unless I run these nuts down on it or have the tire on it. So I can't do that yet till I get the tire on it. But I'm going to say what I'm going to do is I'm going to tighten it down all the way when I do get the tire on it. Okay, you tighten it down tight like that, and then you back it off half a turn. And that's a good pre-adjustment. But we're going to have to do it again when the tire's on it, because the drum could be on there crooked without it being bolted down tight. Last thing to do is, now that the brakes are adjusted and everything's on tight, I'm going to fill this up with oil. And I'm going to give it time to make its way back to the other side, because right now it's just full in the front, and that grease and stuff is going to make it a little bit, may not go back there right away. It's making it back there. Yeah, it's sticking to the sides as I go around and around, so when it's sitting level I don't want it to be running out, but close enough where it almost can run out. And it is trying to run out right now, but that's okay. Get the cap on there. It'll work its way back to the other side a little bit. If not, we'll have a little bit of oil coming out of there making a mess. Well, I'm ready to take it down off the jack. Before I can call this thing finished, I've got to grease this slack adjuster. It's got a fitting on the back down here, and got to grease my brake cam right here. Thanks for watching.